If we could get a large round of applause for Mr. Mike Kostash. D10es are always my favorite events. Like Mike said, I've been to pretty much all of them. I just missed Slovenia, but it was a blizzard. It literally took a blizzard to keep me out of performing at a D10e. But I've been in the Bitcoin space since 2010, and I know Mike alluded to being called a Bitcoiner as a negative connotation, but when I got into the space, that's all there was. There wasn't all of these other cryptocurrencies. It was just Bitcoin, so you were a Bitcoiner. And I've got this hat on that was made about a year ago. It's the joking Donald Trump hat, but it says, "Make Bitcoin Great Again." And I think we could all agree, if we've looked at the Bitcoin price recently, that we've done a pretty good job of making Bitcoin great again. But this industry is something that I care a whole lot about. And if you ever heard me talk, including if you heard me talk in February at the first version of this, you hear me talk about how the blockchain can be leveraged to help the least among us, the people that are the most disadvantaged, and how we can use this decentralized technology to help bring them out of poverty and help bring equality in the whole world. And that's really what I'm passionate about. Those are the things that I care about a whole lot. But earlier this year, I had the fortune of speaking in front of the European Union, and I made the case that to solve the refugee crisis, because there was an issue where NGOs were being paid money to feed refugees, but they weren't actually feeding refugees. Not like they weren't feeding enough. They weren't spending the money on food at all, but because there was no accountability system, that not only did they not feed the people they were supposed to feed, but then they could go back to the well the next year and apply for the same program, and then again not feed people with it. And so I made the proposal that we could make a distributed identity system that would allow you to poll that group of refugees and just ask them a simple question if they had been fed or not. And to my surprise, we got a lot of interest in that, and we were offered a pilot program to build this out for my company, unsung.org. So I was super excited, and I came back to the States, and I asked my best friend, Stephen Dack, who is one of the best developers in the blockchain space. I was like, "Steven, look, we just got funding for this. We're going to build this out. It's going to be awesome." Steve's like, "That's fantastic. But I've got this job right now, and I've got like 6 jobs behind that lined up, and I'm advising a couple of companies, so I probably can't get to it right now, but as soon as all that's done, I'd be happy to work on it." And then so it's like, that's fine. I know lots of other developers in the space. I'll call around and find out, who else is available. So I started calling around, and I got the same thing. "Hey, great idea, but I'm on a job. I've got these other projects that I'm working on, but when that's all done, I can get to this." So after doing that a couple of times, I stopped calling developers, and I started calling CEOs and asking if they were hiring engineers. And I couldn't get the word engineer out of my mouth. I would literally say, "Hey, are you hiring engineers?" And they'd be like, "Do you know somebody? Do you know somebody I can hire? I'll hire them. I'll hire their friends. I'll hire the whole team." And so what we came to the realization of is this: demand for blockchain developers currently far exceeds supply. Now, I care a whole lot about this industry, and today you're going to hear a lot of things about a lot of really interesting stuff in the blockchain space. But what I'm going to talk about is something that sort of affects that, and because I think that we have the ability to change the whole world through the blockchain, what I'm going to talk about is what I see as the largest threat to our growth and trajectory in this industry. So last year, as an industry, we raised about $500 million total. About half of that was through ICOs. Now, the ICOs this year have been so hyperbolic that my slide's already outdated. So this year we've raised about $3.6 billion as an industry, and of that, about $3.2 billion of it has been directly from ICOs, which is massive, and it sounds fantastic. So you think about this. We interviewed 200 Fortune 500 executives, and of those 200, 188 of them had plans to implement blockchain technology, which sounds fantastic. But of those 188, only 12 of them thought that they could actually identify the talent to build that technology out. Think about that. This is the problem. Currently, on the planet Earth, there are 14 available jobs for every qualified blockchain developer. And in the next 7 years, as an industry, we plan to grow 16 times. So we're 14x deficit right now, and we want to grow 16 times over the next few years. You start to see where the problem is. The blockchain ecosystem has been very slow to train new developers, and there's good reasons for that. The biggest ones is that this is new. We're building this, and we're making it up as we're going along. So a lot of times, people haven't stopped to document it. Blockchain tech moves very quickly. So in a traditional curriculum sense, it's very hard to keep updated with it. So a lot of people don't even bother trying. And a big reason that there's not a lot more education going on is that blockchain devs, they're paid more to be in production. So right now, if you're a blockchain developer and you're capable of training someone, for the most part, you're not training anyone because you're actually working in the space. You're in a production environment. And then our ecosystem has had a lack of standards for both education and certification. So what's the solution? So after sort of figuring out how bad the situation was and seeing the data as to what the situation is, I started talking to my network, started talking to Brock, who was here in February as well, and some other good friends of ours. And I was talking to a friend of mine, John Souza, who is the founder of Kingsland University outside of Atlanta. Now, Kingsland University is a technical training college in the United States, right outside of Atlanta, Georgia. And basically, through a lot of cajoling and a lot of conversations, John and I decided that we were going to stand up this academy. We are the first fully US accredited school for blockchain development. So what we're doing is that we have created an immersive 6-week boot camp where we take qualified software developers, not junior developers, but mid-range and senior developers, and we run them through 6 weeks of intensive, hands-on, project-based learning and blockchain best practices. So the end result is that you go in a software developer and you come out a blockchain developer. The curriculum that we're working with is actually built from the top experts in the industry. We're actually going directly to the people that are building out these technologies and using them to build the curriculum. People like Craig Sellers, who I think might be here via Skype later on. He's also usually a mainstay at the d10e conferences. But he created Tether and Omni and Vatomic. These are major technologies in the industry. My friend Stephen Dack, who I mentioned, was one of the core Ethereum developers. Dan Larimer, the creator of BitShares, Steemit, EOS. A lot of people don't realize this, but 2/3 of all blockchain transactions in the world run on technology that Dan built. So there's a huge bottleneck there, and getting that information out of Dan's head and into a curriculum is really, really important. And then also Gabe Kerfman from RSK Labs, which is Rootstock, which is building the Ethereum smart contracting platform, but using the Bitcoin blockchain for security on it. In addition to our in-person 6-week courses, we'll be doing cutting-edge, state-of-the-art online digital learning. What we aim to do is to create the largest repository of blockchain educational resources in the world. We'll be integrating through other universities, through syndication with what's called a SCORM compliance system. It's basically like an API that allows us to plug to basically create a digital course for what we're doing, and other accredited universities around the world can then plug into it and syndicate it through their own course platform. We're accredited by the Southern Association of Colleges and Schools. In the United States, there's 6 accrediting bodies, and they're all regionally based. So all of the schools in one region of the United States are going to be accredited by the same body. And all of those organizations are recognized by the Department of Education. So we're in SACS, which is down in the southeast. What this does is in the United States, it gives us access to Title IV and Title IX funding. And what that is it's all of the federal loan and federal grant programs, as well as the Veterans Administration programs for education. So the first time ever, the hundreds of billions of dollars that's available annually to train in the US is now available to train for blockchain education. And then SCORM compliance is what I just talked about. In addition to training, we're doing career placement services. We're working directly with partners in the industry to make sure that our graduates find meaningful roles within the industry. And the flip side to this is that we're working with companies to make sure that our curriculum that we're teaching is actually meeting the demands of the people that they need to hire. So it's a symbiotic relationship. And we have dozens and dozens of partners throughout the industry that have come together and worked with us on this. Now, in Bitcoin and blockchain, there's a lot of infighting as to which technology is superior. And is it Bitcoin, or is it Bitcoin Cash, or is it Ethereum, or is it EOS? And people can get very heated in that. What we've been very fortunate in is with what we're doing at Academy, we haven't seen any of that. We've had everyone coming together to work towards this because everyone's realizing that this is a goal that affects everyone. So everyone needs to come together and work on it. We have a really great team. We tapped Jinglin Wang from NASDAQ. She ran blockchain product for NASDAQ. She also was the founder of the MIT Bitcoin Club and is currently the executive director of the Blockchain Education Network. Mo Levin from Keynote Events, you might know from the North American Bitcoin Conference and World Blockchain Forum. Mr. Alex Lightman, who's in the back of this room right now, is one of our key advisors, and you're going to hear him talk later on. He's a really wonderful expert in the space and one of the greatest futurists I've ever met. John Sousa is the founder of Kingston University and is my partner at the Academy School of Blockchain. That's our lawyer. That's me. Michael J. Quinn is interesting because he is a former special prosecutor for the SEC. And why that's important is that we're about to start a token sale. Basically, we're creating the Academy token. And the Academy token can be used directly at the Academy School for Blockchain to pay for tuition fees, and it can be paid for career service placement fees. In addition to that, you can stake what's called an advisory node. So if any of you are familiar with the Dash masternode system, it's very similar. Basically allows large stakeholders of our tokens to create a node, which then can create proposals and vote on the proposals of other nodes. And what they're voting on is what our elective curriculum should be. So it's a way for us to actually keep our finger on the pulse of the industry and make sure that our curriculum is staying up to date in terms of what the ecosystem thinks we should be teaching. Our token model is pretty unique in that we burn 70% of the tokens that we take in for payment. Essentially, we think of our tokens as prepaid education, like a gift card. And so once it's redeemed, we think it's fair to burn a large portion of that. So we burn 70% of it, and then 15% of it goes into a dedicated scholarship fund, which could be used directly for scholarships, and it can also be used to subsidize markets that traditionally have a hard time paying for education. So we could go into a less fortunate country and actually stand up blockchain education programs using funds directly from that. And then 15% will actually get placed into a community development fund that's actually monitored by our advisory node system to be used to pay for research and development and for elective course creation. And that's the Academy School of Blockchain. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.
Stay right here. Right here in front of d10e. So, you're going to start your token sale when?
End of January.
Okay. And have you raised any money before that?
We have.
Okay, good. Do you have an institutional backer?
We do.
Okay. So can we make a commitment right here from TAS, which a fund that was born right here in Romania, the Ukrainian friends of mine, that we will back this up.
I would love that.
And we will work together to make sure that there's all the good technologists out there will be the best blockchain technologists through your academy.
I think that's a great idea.
Thank you for your work.
Awesome. Thanks, Mike.